Today we're going to cover GameCube emulation on the Xbox Series X and S version of Retroarch. GameCube is one of my all-time favorite systems and just has a number of games that I absolutely love, and being able to play it on an Xbox Series X or S is pretty fantastic. That being said, there are a crap ton of limitations to what GameCube emulation can do on the Xbox Series X and S. You will be met with constant shader stutter as Uber shaders don't work yet. You will be met with performance issues because the Xbox Series X and S run in back compat mode, so they aren't actually taking advantage of native Series X hardware. And unfortunately, you cannot take advantage of the Direct3D 12 driver that Dolphin actually supports on PC. So while you will get a number of games to work and work well, you do need to understand the shortcomings. The first time you play them, they are going to be a stuttery mess. There are some games that will have unresolvable performance issues. There are other games that will have texture issues that you can't fix. Unfortunately, there's a crap ton of videos out there praising how good the Xbox can run GameCube, and honestly, they are overhyping it, and a lot of people are taking it out of context and thinking it could just be this absolutely perfect thing. It isn't. It has issues. But once you understand these shortcomings, you can still have a really enjoyable time with GameCube emulation on an Xbox Series X and S. Let's dive in. So the first thing we need to do to get GameCube emulation up and running on the Xbox Series X and S version of Retroarch is to install the Xbox version of Retroarch. This video is a continuation of my how to install Retroarch for Xbox Series X and S videos, so look down in the description or in the upper right hand corner for a link to this one to get your Retroarch install set up. Now the next thing we're going to need are GameCube games. If you have a physical collection of GameCube games, you could dump these with a modified GameCube or Wii using the homebrew program CleanRip. Or you can resort to the shady parts of the net and download them. I really don't give a crap which way you do it, but don't ask for illegal download links because I will not give them to you. So stop it. But once you have GameCube games sourced, you need to decide if you want to run them from your Xbox's internal SSD or from a USB thumb drive. For my purposes, I'm going to choose to copy mine over to USB, so I have a USB drive here that I'm just going to copy them into. Now, if you wanted to copy them over to your Xbox's internal SSD, refer back to my setup guide in the description for how to set up an Xbox SSD file share, so that way you can easily open up your Xbox SSD, go into Windows apps, go into your Retroarch folder, and dump your games into a games folder, just like I did with my PS2 games here. I only gave myself about 100 gigs, so having GameCube games on here isn't really the space I want to use it for. I want to use it for things like Wii that actually need to be on the internal SSD, whereas GameCube can run from USB just fine. Once your games are done copying over either to your internal storage or USB drive, we do need one more folder as a prerequisite, and that is our Dolphin Emu folder. Now, a lot of you have been having trouble with this folder recently just because the newest versions of Dolphin are way ahead of what is available within Retroarch, so the folders are not compatible. So I have uploaded a Dolphin Emu folder to my Dropbox and will have a link in the description below. In the description, for the love of everything good in this world, please look in the description because I just told you to. Yeah, description. Got it? Okay. But download this. And once you have it downloaded, we just need to get it extracted. So get it extracted. It will be in a folder named Dolphin-Emu. But now all we need to do is get this folder placed into our Retroarch system folder. So again, if you followed my advanced setup guide, this is as easy as going into your development files, Windows apps, Retroarch folder, your new system folder, and dragging it in. And done. Or if you are still relying on My Files Explorer, you will need to add the Dolphin Emu folder to your USB thumb drive and copy it over to your Retroarch system folder within My Files Explorer. So once you have that Dolphin Emu folder copied onto your USB drive, you'd go into My Files Explorer, go to Removable Storage Devices, open up your USB drive, select the Dolphin Emu folder and tell it to copy. Now go over to Isolated Storage, Packages, find your Retroarch folder, it's usually the first one, Local State folder, scroll down until you find the System folder, tell it to paste. And once that's done copying over, go ahead and boot into Retroarch. And now that Retroarch has booted up, we need to make a Direct3D 11 config file specifically for GameCube games. If you followed my PlayStation 2 guide previously and have already made a Direct3D 11 config file, there is one more setting you're going to need to change to let it apply for GameCube. So stay tuned to this segment of the video and see which setting that is so you don't end up screwing up your Direct3D 11 config file. Anyways, to make a new config file, go to the main menu, press right, go down to configuration file, and save a new configuration. Once that's done, go up to load configuration and choose the new configuration that we just created. Now, whenever you load a new configuration file, it kind of breaks the Retroarch main menu. Just press A to go back in and then press B to back out to kind of fix it. But if we go in, we can see that we are loaded into our new configuration, which is what we want. Good. Alright, from here, go down to settings, and we're going to change our driver from OpenGL to Direct3D 11. Once that's set, back out, and go down to video. Once in video, go down to full screen mode, and enable force resolution on UWP. Make sure that the full screen height and width are set to 0 before doing so. And there we go. Once you have that set, you can go ahead and back out to the settings screen again. And here is the one setting you're going to want to change if you've already made a Direct3D 11 configuration for PCSX2. Scroll down to Core and turn off Allow Cores to switch the video driver. The latest version of Dolphin in the Xbox Series X and S version of Retroarch has a fun little feature where it keeps trying to change your video driver back to OpenGL when you close a game, and this results in all kinds of problems and bugs that many of you have been experiencing. So disable this option. It will force it into Direct3D 11 every time. But once you have that set, just press B, press left, go back up to the main menu, go down to configuration file, and save the current configuration. Now we can go ahead and quit out of Retroarch and load back in. And when it loads back in, we'll be on our default OpenGL settings, as you can see here. So to play GameCube games or PS2 games, we just need to go in and load up our Direct3D 11 configuration file. And again, it breaks the menu when you change config files, so just press A, press B, and it'll fix it. But now we can confirm that we are on Direct3D 11, and we're good to go. Now, just as a little optional thing here, if you really want to make sure that this config file is never going to change, if you followed my advanced setup guide to move your config files over to your S drive, you can actually access that on your PC, go into config, and you can see the new config file that we just made right here. And we can right click on this on Windows, go into properties, and change it to read only. That way this config file can never be changed by Retroarch. No matter what your cores try to do to it, it will stay how it is. It's great. And if you want to, you can also rename it as well, so... But again, that is a completely optional step, but I just thought I'd share it with you. Anyways, the time has come to begin loading up some GameCube games. So one of the methods to do so is to go to your main menu, go to Load Content, and navigate to the directory that your GameCube games are stored in. If you have put them internally, they will be under S, Program Files, Windows Apps, your Retroarch folder, your Games folder, and then you'd find them there. But since I put mine under USB, they are going to be located under E, GameCube games, and then I can choose a game and begin loading it. I don't personally care for this method a whole lot, so what I like to do instead is go back out to the main menu, and we're going to make a games playlist. So to do this, go down to Import Content, Manual Scan, Content Directory, navigate to where you have your GameCube games stored. Tell it to scan this directory. System name, press right on your D-pad to go to Nintendo and find GameCube. Then for default core, press right to scroll down to Nintendo and find the Dolphin core. So here we go, Nintendo, GameCube, /Wii, Dolphin. Now make sure scan recursively is on if you have your games separated into subfolders. And if you're going to compress your GameCube games, make sure you use NKit so that way they are done properly. But once you have everything set, go ahead and start the scan. And now when we back out to the main menu, there is a new GameCube playlist entry here on the left. And then to play a game, all we need to do is go down to it, press A, and press A again to run. And with everything in place, your game should boot up, and you could begin playing. Now, one thing to note with this new version of Dolphin in Retroarch, a couple of games seem to have broken that used to work. So for example, I had Need for Speed Underground. That game worked fine on 1.9.0, but under 1.9.4's version of Dolphin, it no longer runs. So I don't know what's up with that. It's something to be aware of. Some games might just refuse to load. Now, one thing to note about Dolphin, it can support up to 4 players, so if you want to play more than 1 player on your GameCube games, just hook up more Xbox controllers and you should be able to play up to 4 players using Dolphin just fine. But again, as you can see here in Mario Kart, you will see the occasional stutter in the video as new effects first come onto screen, and this is just your typical shader compilation stutter present within Dolphin. Again, just one of those limitations I made you all aware of at the beginning of this video. If you get temporary hitches and stuttering, that is shader compilation, so that is perfectly normal and expected. But again, if you are aware of these issues, you can have a great time with Dolphin within Retroarch. But for those of you looking to get GameCube games up and running on the Xbox Series X and S, that is the basic process. Again, be aware of those limitations that I warned you about earlier. Do expect a lot of games not to run correctly. It's just going to happen, that is a thing. But now let's go ahead and talk about some of the advanced core options within Dolphin. So go into your Retroarch quick menu and scroll down to Options. And our first option is to change our EFB scale. This is the internal resolution that GameCube games will run at. To get the best compatibility and speed out of your GameCube games, you want to leave this at native resolution. There are a number of games that will work just fine if you crank them up to a full 4K. So 4 times 5 times resolution. Plenty of games work at this resolution, like Mario Kart Double Dash. But a lot of other games will start to have issues as soon as you start upscaling them, so do be aware of that. Try upscaling them. If you start getting lag, just lower the resolution back down until you don't. You're going to need to set this one on a game-by-game basis because some games are more demanding than others. We're going to skip over a bunch of different options here real quick, and we're going to talk about the CPU clock rate. So for my example, I'm going to be using Star Wars Rogue Squadron 2 because this is one of the most demanding games on GameCube emulation. As you can see here on the Battle of Hoth, the game is running in massive slow-mo mode because it just cannot maintain full speed on this game. Like some of the space missions it could do fine in, but these ground levels are just way too demanding for it. So by going into our quick menu and going to the CPU clock rate override, we can downclock the emulated GameCube CPU to make the emulation easier on our Xbox's CPU. Again, to get full speed on this game on a desktop PC, you need something that's about 4.5 gigahertz with good IPC. And while the Xbox Series X does have good IPC, it does not have the clock speed. It's running at either the 3.8 or the 3.5 gigahertz. I don't know which one dev mode is actually running under. And then for Series S, you're at like the 3.2 or the 3.5. Again, I don't know. But you're well under the speed needed to get full speed on this game. So if we drop this down, we're going to start with 70% and see where that gets us. But by dropping it down, we can try to get full speed out of this game, but it does come at an FPS cost, so the game won't look as smooth in motion, which is really unfortunate. Thankfully, it looks better than FrameSkip does on most emulators, so this isn't completely deal-breaking for me, but definitely not my preferred. So as you can see, we're getting a little bit faster, but still not quite there. So we're going to drop this down to 40%. And there we go. Now you can see we are getting a lot faster speeds, but we have lost FPS, so it doesn't look as smooth. One of the key signs in emulation to know when you're not maintaining full speed is when you start hearing a bunch of audio crackle and stutter. So if you're getting a bunch of that in your games, you know you need to lower this emulated CPU setting to try to get full speed. Now, not every game is as demanding as Rogue Squadron, so honestly, for the most part, I've only had to drop this down to around 70% for most things. But for Rogue Squadron, certain parts of Twilight Princess, and some of the other demanding games, this does need to get dropped down to 30 quite regularly to get full speed. It's just how it is. We're going to skip a couple of options here and go down to Widescreen Hack. And this is a hack to implement fake widescreen into our games. So you will notice that there is culling at 4x3 borders in most games, but for the most part, this can be pretty fun to mess around with. And it actually looks like it might have been changed over the last couple of months since I've used it last, because there's actually not culling in Rogue Squadron anymore. It just looks stretched. So this doesn't actually feel like the widescreen hack as I know it on Dolphin. This is interesting. But honestly, for the most part, I just recommend leaving this off, and if you want to do widescreen hacks, do them with cheat codes instead. Gonna skip a couple of options again and go down to audio mixing rate. So by default, this is set to 3200. If you want to have better audio emulation, you can set this up to 4800, but it will require more CPU power, resulting in more lag on demanding games like Rogue Squadron. So make your pick here on what you want to have. For the most part, you should be able to set this to 4800 just fine. It's just in the really demanding ones, it's going to actually cause a performance hit. Next, we have shader compilation mode, and this is set to sync by default. This is why you get shader stutter whenever you see new effects or load in new areas of games. Now on PC Dolphin, we have Uber shaders to overcome these. There's no stutter anymore, but the Uber shaders options are still not working under Xbox Series X or S in all of my testing. So we're going to just leave this on sync for now. If you don't mind some graphical bugs, you can actually turn this on async skip rendering. It will get rid of the stutters, but you'll have missing effects and graphics the first time you see them. Next, we have anisotropic filtering. You can turn this up to 16 times or down to 1 time or leave it off or anywhere in between. I just prefer to leave this one off on Xbox myself. Next are a couple of options that usually get set per game with the Dolphin INI files that are in that Dolphin emu folder that we placed earlier, so I'm not really going to go over any of these at the moment. But the next one I'm going to cover is GPU texture decoding. I like to turn this one on. And then we have wait for shaders before starting. And normally I do like to have this one on, but for some reason in this build of Dolphin, it is causing me to just get broken game loads every single time I've turned it on. So for now, I leave this one off. Next is force texture filtering. I recommend leaving this one off for now. It does pretty much the same thing as anisotropic filtering, so I just leave it off. Next, we have load custom textures, and this option is supposed to let you load in HD texture packs to make your games on Dolphin look a little bit prettier. Unfortunately, on the Xbox Series X and S version of Retroarch, I have not been able to get these to work for myself. You may have better luck, I hope you have better luck, but for me personally, they just haven't worked. So, I'm just going to leave it at that. Next, we have internal cheats enabled, so this is for loading up gecko cheats and stuff like that. I don't really cover cheats in my videos, so I'm just going to leave it at that there as well. And then our last option is texture cache accuracy, and this is an accuracy setting, as it says, and it can be changed between fast, middle, and safe. Depending on the game, you may need to set this to middle or safe, but it does come with a pretty big performance hit, which is why it's set to fast by default. The Dolphin INI should set this option automatically for you on the games that need it, so you shouldn't have to mess with this one a whole lot. But that's going to do it as far as core options are concerned. If there are options you want to have set in certain games but not others, for example, the internal resolution, if you have a game that can run at 5 or 6x, whereas other ones can only run at like 3 or 2 or 1, you could set those on a game-by-game basis by going up to Manage Core Options and saving the game options file. Alternatively, you could also save a core override by going into the Overrides tab and saving a core override, so that way these are the options that will greet you every time you load up a GameCube game. But that's going to do it as far as GameCube emulation on the Xbox Series X and S is concerned. Again, there are a number of limitations by using Dolphin within Retroarch, especially so on the Xbox Series X and S. It's just not quite there yet for everything, but you can still enjoy most things on GameCube. Some notable exceptions: there are errors in Paper Mario, massive slowdown in the Star Wars games. You'll probably have issues with Spider-Man 2. And then, of course, all games will have shader stutter compilation the first time you run them, so if you're a big Smash fan, load up every character combination in every level, get all of those shaders loaded in, and that way every time you play Smash, you're going to have a really good time afterward. I'm hoping we'll start seeing some updates to the Dolphin core to kind of iron out some of these issues, maybe get some Direct3D 12 support added in, because the main line of Dolphin seems to have Direct3D 12 implemented back in, which would definitely result in a speed increase. But this is where we stand right now, so as always, if you happen to have any questions, feel free to ask me down in the comment section below, and I will do my best to try to help you out. But now if you could all do me a huge favor, and please be sure to hit that like or dislike button, just depending on how much you like today's video. And if you haven't done so already, hit that sub button so you can see when new videos go live on the channel. Goes a long way to really keeping this place growing, and we are super grateful to each and every one of you for that. If you'd like to further help support the channel, you can also check out that join button here on YouTube or the Patreon link in the bottom right hand corner of the screen. A little really goes a long way to keeping this place up and running, and we are super grateful to all of our freaking champions who have done so. You guys are rock stars. Thank you so much. But that's going to do it for this one, so until next time, my wonderful internet peeps, stay awesome, and we will see you all back next video.